divorce lawyers of Reddit, what are some of your most memorable cases? Had a client whose soon-to-be ex-husband used her email address and phone number to sign her up for every bank, loan, religious, mental illness, and pornographic site he could think of. She was bombarded by people contacting her about her interest in their product services. He even put out ads for intimate relations on Craigslist with her information. The kicker is that she actually went out with a guy who contacted her. If I learned anything being a divorce attorney, I no longer practice. It was that if the opposing party sounded like a nutcase, I would soon see the nutcase come out of my own client. Normal people don't just accidentally marry crazies, not often. Worked as courtroom clerk front desk when I was in college. A couple argued on the custody details on their son. I thought it was the normal "I won't let you see him, you piece of crap." But the mom wants the dad to spend more time during holidays together. All three of them. And the dad wants to do the same, just more frequently. They ended up reconciled and agreed to couples therapy before the divorce procedure went further. Then they came back a month later to withdraw the divorce proceeding. Case 1. Honduran couple came in for divorce consult. I informed them I could only represent and advise one of them, and wife called first, so I am representing her. He furiously storms out. 2 days later, he hides in the bushes outside the house where she is staying. When she leaves to go to work, he jumps out and decapitates her with a machete. 2 small kids in the house. Terrible crap. Case 2. On the day of a divorce trial involving adultery grounds, opposing counsel produces photos of my male client, the husband, wearing lingerie and long brown wig, blowing another dude. I successfully exclude this from evidence on the grounds of relevance, because the wife was the photographer. Case 1. Takes head. Case 2. Gives head. The universe loves balance. I once represented a client from a divorcing couple who still lived together pending the sale of the family home but would not speak to one another for any reason whatsoever. Had to negotiate terms with opposing counsel for the sharing of refrigerator space. Had a husband and wife go toe-to-toe over an ashtray they got in Vegas at some point. Neither smoked, strangely enough. Spent nearly $5,000 for me and another attorney to duke it out in court over the silly thing. Prior to proceeding, I explained what the cost would be for to argue over something silly like this and that he could give me $2,500 and I would fly to Vegas for the weekend and get him an identical one instead. He said he didn't care about the costs because he intended to smash it on the courthouse steps in front of her if we won. We won and he followed through with the smashing. He laughed and said the look on her face was worth much more than $2,500. People get crazy in divorce proceedings. I worked for a law firm while in college and we had a client who had just come home from a 2-week vacation with his wife only to be served with divorce papers and a temporary restraining order as soon as they pulled in the driveway. Wife didn't say a word and just went into their house. Poor guy came straight to our office and was massively confused, to say the least. Husband and wife still living together at the time had a small confrontation. The husband pulls a sphincter, says what on her, and she takes the bait and says what. He giggled like a little kid. She then told her lawyer, who had to talk to his lawyer. His lawyer asked him if he called his wife a sphincter and told him he is not allowed to call her that anymore. My brother is a divorce attorney. His most memorable case. He was representing a guy in a divorce custody battle who was accused of horrific child abuse. Very graphic, very detailed depositions from the young kids against daddy. Things look grim. Then my brother, a failed actor, notices the deposition transcript, done by social workers under oath, contains a question at the end from one of the kids. Did I hit my marks? He wonders how little kids know about acting jargon. Subpoenas wife's personal checking account during discovery. Sure enough, acting lessons. Deposes an extremely sketchy acting coach, and panics. Coach produces DVDs of practice interrogations with the kids, hours of coaching the kids on exactly what imaginary things to say about daddy. He says it was his one and only Perry Mason moment in 20+ years of practice, and dad got sole custody of the kids. The husband's statement of property listed all the food in the kitchen as of the date of separation, complete with estimated values for each item. Campbell's vegetable soup, $0.79. 20+ year divorce lawyer here. I've seen it all. I once represented a husband divorcing his wife of 35+ years. They were in their late 60s. At mediation they divided up about $500,000 in assets within 30 minutes. Then they spent 2.5 hours fighting over 2 hurricane glasses from Pat O'Brien's and a pitchfork. Mediator: she really wants that pitchfork. It was a gift from her daddy. Husband: that B. we bought it at Home Depot 2 years ago, and etc. They settled at mediation after spending over $1,000 in attorney fees combined for the glasses and pitchfork. They remarried 3 months later. My first trial. My client was being sued for a divorce on grounds of habitual cruel and inhuman treatment. Her husband alleged that she grabbed his dong really hard and hurt it. He alleged it was on purpose. I had to cross-examine him about it. Not a lawyer, but as a courthouse clerk, I had a court order come across my desk that explicitly banned a father from playing Minecraft with his son over the internet because the ex-wife alleged that the in-game chat was a form of improper contact that wasn't outlined in their custody visitation plan. My mom works in divorce court. She comes home with stories that are interesting, sad, funny, and sometimes just weird. My favorite is, a voicemail is played in court as evidence. The wife is cheating on the guy. This voicemail is from the husband to the wife. Hey, I know you are there. The only reason you can't answer is because I know you can't speak with that guy's dong in your mouth. This is why I could never be in a courtroom. I'd laugh myself into a stroke. My client's husband cheated on her with another woman and he took some photographs of the penetration. She found the pictures on the husband's computer but his face was not in any of them. So during a deposition I had to ask him if the dong in the photographs belonged to him, and he said he wasn't sure. When I pressed him on why he could not identify his own dong, he claimed that exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam caused him to have memory problems. There is a notorious case known around my pretty large department as the cat divorce decree account. In this divorce decree, there is a 5-page addendum specifically regarding Mittens and Buttons Johnson. Names changed for their protection. Memorable clauses included: mandatory 10-minute Skype sessions weekly, no unsupervised play dates with children under 15, and that their claws be trimmed every 3 days. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but when I was at a mediation a few months ago, the mediator was telling me about a divorce he mediated a few years back. It was your classic rich guy is sick of his wife and kids, and wants a divorce to run off with a young, hot piece of ass. His wife wanted blood. She came to the mediation with some pretty outrageous demands about the money and property she'd receive. The mediator pushed hard throughout a long day of mediation, but she hadn't budged an inch. Finally, very late in the day, the husband threw up his hands and said, "Frick it, give her everything she's asking for and let's be done with it." The mediator went back to the wife's conference room to share the good news that the husband had caved in, and she flipped the frick out, glowing incandescent with rage at the idea that her husband was willing to pay truly insane compensation to be done with her and ride off with his little girlfriend. She was emotionally invested in the fight, and the hubby eventually dismissed it, and her, as not worth his time. I can understand her rage. Family law paralegal here. One time we worked really hard on a woman's case because her husband had gotten on a bus to Mexico with her kids. We expedited everything. I went above and beyond for this woman, contacting attorneys in the deep south of MX and writing out very clear instructions to get back her kids. It turns out our client had stabbed her husband because he confronted her about sleeping with his brother. The husband packed up and took the kids. After college I worked in a law firm dealing with family law and have a ton of stories. 1. At one time we had almost a dozen cases of high military personnel going through divorces because their wives came out of the closet after all their children grew up. 2. We had a client who was wealthy, but going through a divorce cause she was going crazy. She dressed like a homeless person, smelled like crap, and once I delivered a copy of her husband's Discover to her and her house looked like a dump. I literally thought she was gonna kill me and bury me under the piles and piles of crap in her place. She also kept harassing her husband and his girlfriend, vandalizing the car, writing stuff on the door of the condo, etc. We had to drop her as a client after she kept disobeying her attorney, etc. 3. We had a wealthy client who married a girl he met during tango classes and they had a child. He spent over $500,000 fighting for custody and she kept accusing him of abusing their daughter. to try and win, etc. Each side hired psychologists and experts, and in the end, it didn't matter if it wasn't the truth. The mother kept telling the girl she was abused and the experts said it was gonna damage her regardless. He eventually won partial custody. My client had a son named Snoop Frog and neither parent wanted custody. Korean divorce story here. My friend wanted a divorce from his wife. Now one thing about Korean divorce law is there is no alimony or anything. It's also fairly male friendly, especially if no kids are involved. There can be settlements where a party has to pay X amount or whatever. The only way a spouse can get a guaranteed sum of money is if the spouse increased the net worth of the other spouse. Anyway, my friend married his wife. They were married for 4 years and things just weren't working out. So he moved out and they started the divorce process. My friend was a good man and continued to support her throughout the process, paid her rent and her bills. But the wife was greedy though. My friend had offered her $20,000 as a one-time settlement. This was a huge chunk of money to him. The wife angrily demanded $30,000 and would refuse to budge. They went to court. Their cases were presented. The husband said he was willing to give the woman $20,000 in return for a divorce. The wife demanded $30,000 as compensation. The lawyers argued that the husband had gone above and beyond with supporting his wife even after separation and it was unfair to demand more. The judge asked the woman if she would accept $20,000. The woman replied no. The judge said then it will be $0. Divorce is finalized. Stamp done. My buddy walked out of the courthouse. Then the wife attacked him. My friend filed assault charges against her and successfully won a $3,000 judgment from her. Not a lawyer, but I have a funny story from a wine storage place. Guy rents out a storage spot in this wine storage center. Temperature controlled. What's odd is he rents out this huge space and slowly over the next several months begins filling it with cases of very expensive hard to obtain wine. Owner of storage place asks if he is moving, downsizing, or why he needs so much space. Guy tells him he's swapping wine out of his cellar and replacing it with cheap wine. He was planning on filing for divorce. Wife knew about basement collection but had no idea what was in it or how much it cost. He knew she was going to be vindictive and would want the wine. He was happy to give it all away. Divorcee, not a lawyer, but I remember the blank stare from the lawyer. I was paying $250 an hour to handle my case with my husband when I told him our biggest marital asset was our $10,000 Magic the Gathering card collection. My client, husband, was living in same house as wife throughout proceedings. He'd call me and complain about things like his wife ate a bag of chips and didn't go to the store to replace it. His wife invited one of her friends over who he hated. His wife marathon TV shows on Netflix instead of fixing dinner. And numerous complaints about wife's lack of a moral compass. And he paid me $250 per hour for all that shiz. I'm not a lawyer but was in a painful divorce. I had my ex stand up before the judge and say, also, there is this item on his credit card from somewhere and I had to look it up and I think it's a strip club. Since we were representing ourselves, I got the judge's attention and he let me speak. My response, Your Honor, she knows what the item is about because she was there that night and even got a dance from another lady. I saw mother and father live together and fight over the location of the Xbox and Wii. The games were in the family living room. The father took the games from the living room and put them in his bedroom. The children then spent all the time in the father's bedroom. The mother literally went to court to obtain an order that the Xbox and Wii be returned to the living room. They spent thousands on this. So my dad's a divorce lawyer and doesn't usually talk about his work, but he did tell me one story. He had a client who was a trucker and wanted to divorce his wife. My dad describes this guy as the embodiment of a late 40s, 300 pounds, gentle sir, neckbird, red pill kinda guy. The man tells my dad a narrative about how he and his wife are in an open marriage, but she refuses to have another partner, even though this man has multiple partners. He also casually mentions to my dad that he is a bisexual, but wanted to make it very clear that he prefers women, but sleeps with men regularly. It's worth noting that my dad is as straight edge, old fashioned as they come. Imagine Hank Hilbert from Georgia. So the guy tells my dad that he wants to divorce his wife. He doesn't say why at first, Dad asks him why, and he tells him a story about his last trucking, or whatever it's called. This guy was out in his truck on a run, and it's his 49th birthday. Since he was alone at a truck stop on his birthday, his wife gets her husband an escort. Now remember how I said this guy's B? She gets him a gigolo. So this man and this rent boy are getting it on in his big rig. The guy tells my dad, in graphic detail, that the guy bit his dong while he was getting a BJ, and that it hurt so much he punched him, kicked him out of the truck, and immediately called his wife saying he wanted a divorce for hiring an escort that would do such a thing. My dad said he's never had to try harder to keep a straight face and be professional, but the guy ended up being a great client. Great client to my dad means he actually paid. Dad says a lot of divorce clients lose the divorce and end up not paying the lawyer. My father-in-law was an attorney. He represented a husband in a divorce, and the discussion about division of assets was so petty it included fighting over partially used boxes of grocery items. When the couple refused to compromise over a half-eaten box of cereal, the judge lost it and said he was going to make a summary judgment and exclude the couple because they were wasting the court's time. You found the leaf of life. Subscribe and it will bring you immortality. Well, maybe. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.